All right, let's do it.
Cool. All right, so we're back. I think this is going to be episode 2. We haven't, maybe
We haven't discussed and
rotate
figured out
them around.
that, but yeah.
So I'm John. This is
Francisco.
Good to have you back. Thanks again for coming. I think we learned a couple of things from the first episode that we're hoping to carry through. So hopefully everyone's going to get better and better. So
yeah, absolutely.
Stick with us by
episode 6.
120.
We've got different ideas there.
Okay.
You know what I was actually telling my wife, like, I also think podcasting, just like anything else, is like a skill, right?
Yeah.
You have to do it a bunch of times and then you get better at it, right? If you just do it once or twice, it's never going to be 100% like finished product.
Yeah.
You start getting better, you start understanding the beats a little bit, you know what's more important, what's not important to mention, right?
Yeah. Like I think I talk way too much.
I don't think you talk too much. Listen, as someone who doesn't talk a lot, sometimes I need that time to develop my thoughts. So it helps a lot.
If this thing generates a percentage of conversation point, it's like 90-10. And even when you talk, I'm talking over you, joining you in.
That's part of conversations. You're good. I think that's how we have to have it.
So we'll figure it out. Also, I'm sure we'll hear as people watch, if people are going to watch this, I'm sure we'll get some comments about we need to do this differently. And if you have any suggestions, and you see any bourbon behind me that I should be ordering up, please let me know.
Yeah, bourbon suggestions.
Bourbon suggestions. Francisco's a coffee guy. You talked about last time. We'll throw some stuff in the back.
Oh, that's kind of a cool idea.
Some additional features.
Yeah, I like that. Like, you throw some bags behind there. You throw some more bourbon brands behind there.
Ooh. I love it.
Okay, cool.
We'll do some Easter eggs. Find the thing. Find what John did with this thing. Or how much bourbon does John drink?
That's true. You can measure it at this point, right? Yeah, a little bit.
Let's see. That one bottle that was there, killed. It's been a good one. Maybe we had to put people over. Yeah. So anyway, this is all going in the show 100% because this is the most fun we're going to have. But actually, it was funny. So we were talking earlier today as we're getting set up for the show. Francisco and I both kind of had rough beginnings of the week. This is early in the week. Last week we did it on a Friday. This week it's only Tuesday.
Monday was rough.
And Monday was rough.
Monday hit hard.
So we're going to go into details because that's what the show's about. It's about talking about this stuff,
being vulnerable,
figuring out why it kind of hit us, what kind of stuff happened. So as I mentioned, I think I talk too much. Francisco, why don't you start? Why don't you start talking about first of all, I'm assuming how you're doing is all right.
Yeah, baseline.
All right. I've said that a lot already, and Crystal, my wife picks up on it now. She's you're just all right, huh? I'm like,
I noticed I did it when I came in today, right? Like when we walked through the door, right? It's an instinct, right?
I thought it was just your brand.
I was like, it's like, oh yeah, I'm okay, I'm all right. I'm
you're just branding the show. I'm like, I get it, buddy. You're here to record, so you're just all right. So anyway, why don't you talk about it? What's up?
Yeah. So this week, I mean, as we talked about kind of last week a little bit, I'm on the job hunt, right? And so trying to figure out where I fit in that and what steps I should be taking. Good news was I had a few interviews. I had about 3 solid interviews that I felt very confident going into, very confident coming out of. Part of the issue, though, was now that I haven't heard back from them, because it's been, like 2 weeks at this point almost, I'm kind of a little bit in a frazzled state, right? Where you're like, well, did that go as good as I thought it would? Right. What do I do at this point? And you start kind of spiraling. And so I was talking to my wife yesterday because she can kind of see it on me. And I was just telling her, like, I think it's important for me to feel sad. Because I think a lot of people or a lot of guys we avoid those feelings, any feelings, right? Negative emotion, bad in general, right? But like specifically being sad or vulnerable, very easy to repress and put that away. But yesterday I kind of just tried to take the day to be like, no, this is who I am. I'm sad today. And that's okay. That's going to be what it is for the next few days. And I'm going to see how that feels. And I think in that, even today, I automatically felt better, right? Just being like, oh yeah, I was upset about that. And I'm still upset about not hearing back from certain roles or something, but I feel a little bit better because of it.
A little bit better.
A little bit better. Yeah.
Good benchmark. Right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
No, I get it. Yeah. Well, also, I mean, not to, but some of the other jobs too. I mean, this week's a kind of weird one. We're in the week after Easter.
True.
Apparently, a lot of schools had today off or yesterday off.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people take the day off. I think there's a little bit of an overlap. Not to just say that things have went. Because also one issue, actually, I saw somebody post about it on LinkedIn. One issue with job hunting is employers just ghosting people.
Yeah.
That's a big issue. I think that's such a dehumanizing thing to do to somebody,
Yeah.
Like when you go, especially if you've been interviewed, if you just submit your application and you never hear back, that's one thing. But you went through an interview, and then if they don't get back to you in a timely manner or give you an expectation of when you'll be hearing back from them, I think that's I would like to see that get improved in the HR space. I remember when I was applying for jobs a few years ago, it was really upsetting to, like you said, have a conversation with people and feel like you did all right on those kinds of things, and then they just never talk to you again.
And it shakes your confidence, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like, was that in my head? Did that not nearly go as well as I thought it went? Right? Because now I have to worry about it. And Lena or my wife, was telling me that like, this isn't a reflection of you, but it kind of feels like an interview is an exact reflection of you. Right? Like that's one of those rare occasions where I'm like, that's an exact reflection of who I am and what I'm doing. So I don't know how much I buy that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But it's hard, and I get it.
It's super hard, and it's also not. It's hard not to start taking stuff personally.
Yeah.
In the process, I think, especially because, like we talked about last time, I think that a lot of what us guys feel like is that our value can be tied into all this stuff with related to work, whether it's what we produce or the stature of the job we have. Like I know you said you were very proud about making it to manager level at some of your coffee jobs, and obviously it's a really big deal. But it's that the fact that it's you had that feeling and that made you proud and everything like that, and then now have to come in and try and apply, and then it's just a whole different dynamic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I had something, I guess, similar to that. We've been going through some stuff with, obviously, with business and everything like that. A lot of downward trends on business lately, and but a couple of my clients. So we had two issues. One, I had a client that decided that not only were they not going to continue on with us, which happened, but that they were just not going to pay a good portion of the invoice that they still owed us. And that was really frustrating, because actually it was not just any old company. It's people that I was very close to, that I used to be very, very have close personal relationships with. They decided they were going to just do this. I felt like they were coming after me, and I still kind of feel that way. Still angry, still hurt by it. I think I'm more hurt now than I am angry, because I just feel like it feels like I was telling my wife this, why some of the reason it was getting to me so much, and it was because I felt like, it's one of those, like, you thought you're really close with somebody, like you had a really good and then they just they do something like this that's so out of character, and then it feels like that was I always wrong about this relationship? And I
was I overestimating all of this?
And then when we were losing business and we were losing all this stuff, and they're just kind of just like, well, this is the way it's going to go. I know business isn't personal, but you can't help but feel like you're just being discarded.
Yeah.
Like what? It's all right. We can just discard you in this, and we don't need to, like I was getting told many times, like, we don't need we don't need to have a conversation on this. Like it's just a decision. Like business is business, and I get that part, but at the same time, it's like, I've been working with you guys for years, or I've known you guys. These guys, this client specifically, known for more than almost like 15 years.
Yeah.
And then
close personal ties.
And then like the other clients that we lost. Like I worked really hard on their accounts for about a year, and then just that sense of, well, we're gonna just do this, and I was like, where'd this come from? And they're like, it's just it's just a decision we're making. And I'm like, why wasn't I involved in any conversation that was like, whether it's underperformance or not seeing value or whatever it is? So then I question, then where my value, like, am I not providing the value that I am? And then the issue with that is that I was getting, and you know this, but I was getting a lot of the line of, it's, we're hiring internally, so this is a internal decision.
Right.
And in both cases, 2 out of 3, we had this happen 3 times. 2 out of 3 cases that are the bigger cases, that's actually really not what happened. They really just found a different partner and they're going to go with this. And it's just like,
yeah, that feels a bit like a rug pull. Like,
it's like, well, and also I'm just like, why are you lying? Like,
yeah,
well,
just give it to me straight, right? Like,
just
I could
at
have taken
least
it,
get to me
yeah.
straight. But don't let me find out as we're transitioning that you're just like, actually, this other group that's been involved with us for a while has kind of swept in and snuck in. Because then I wonder, wait. When it was hiring internally, I get it. But then when it's like, when it's hiring internally and you're consolidating costs, get it. But if now you're just saying, no, it's not consolidating costs, we're still going to pay somebody else for this work. It's just not going to be you.
Yeah,
different story.
absolutely.
And so I felt like it's been really yesterday. It was what I told my wife too. I was like, I feel like this is because like this has been going on for a few weeks now, and I told my wife, I was like, it just feels like it's this this relentless cycle of, you know, uh, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, something happens, and then I have to suffer through it or deal with it or whatever. And then I finally get like Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe I can get on a better swing
Yeah,
where I'm
getting into
like,
a better place.
all right, I'm in a better place. And then the next month, like next one hits, and it's like, oh yeah, just when you thought you were in a better place, here this is, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just, and so I don't know. I feel like there's a there's just a struggle with this like a relentless attack, like a just relentless attacking on stuff. And I know that there's ruts that we can get into where this is the thing, and I'm trying to do everything to get out of this kind of a rut. But it's very, very difficult, and it makes me very leery of who to trust now because I feel like I've been lied to or misled multiple times that I don't believe people in what they're telling me.
Right, or like buying into the niceties, right? I think that's sometimes something that really happens, right? Where like, especially when you're coworkers with people, right? When you're working with them, a lot of times you're trying to be as friendly and amicable as possible, right?
Right.
But then like the moment you no longer have business use to them, you're like, well, where was all of that? Was that all just surface level? Was there nothing else going on there? I think, yeah, I think that's like an insecurity I always worry about too, right?
Yeah.
From this standpoint, though, I think it's tougher. I think like the bigger, harder part, I think for you too, is that you're a father, a husband, breadwinner for your family, right? So like, where do you get the time and energy to feel down about this, right? Like I talked about in the beginning, like yesterday, I got to be honest, it's just me and my wife, so we have a very lax situation, right? Like, yes, having no income's okay, but my wife still works, so we have some way through this, right? But for you being the sole breadwinner, I think not having enough space for that is probably the harder part, right? It's like, when do I have time to feel down about this, right?
Yeah, or I take a little bit of time that I can, and I feel like there's a couple things I know I do. I pour a lot of times I'll pour myself into work a little bit, where it's like,
it makes you feel something, right? You're doing something.
I'm moving this other stuff. But it's also kind of panic mode. It's like, look, I can't let the ones that are sticking around.
I can't
I've
let them
got
fall.
to let them. I've got to keep those going. So you kind of get into that panic mode type thing, and then there's there's just like other times when it's just like I feel like I'm half. I had to kind of split like a little, almost like severance.
Yeah.
Where it's but unfortunately you can't. So it's just kind of like I feel like
we're not built that way.
I might be here. I might be at dinner. I might be downstairs with the kids. Might be making dinner. Or I might be there, but definitely not all there.
Yeah.
Like the other part of me is still thinking about this thing and the hurt feelings or the anger or whatever.
Or what you could have done to change it, or
whatever's kind of ruminating around. But at the end of the day, like the sometimes the things that the only thing that I can do sometimes is get back to the idea of what about this can I control at this point,
Yeah, what's within my control, what can I do?
I've already done what I could do in all these circumstances, so what can I do now, is pretty minimal. Sometimes you can get into a creative mode where you're like, I can still do this, or I can figure this out, but as far as what can I do now, with both of these, it's just like, well, just end them and let them go and get it off. Like for the one that with the invoice issue, I was just like, I basically just had to accept what was being given to me, and then just get it out of my life.
Yeah, but that's exactly it though. There's a power in that also though, right? There's a power in saying, all right, fine. There's nothing I can do. I'm taking any further. I'm just going to cut it off here. Yes, maybe I take a slight loss from what I was hoping for, but at the end of the day, I think it no longer takes up space in your mind and you can let it go finally, right?
Yeah.
That's past us now, right? And
yeah.
It may be something that's hard to bring up later, but at least it's not actively taking up space in your mind, which is huge, I think.
Yeah, it's better that it can get over with. It'll still has a bit of a like a I'm sure that if it's
a
a connection, and it's a connection. So like see people out or see this kind of stuff. It's like I don't really want to anymore. I definitely don't want to see them around, kind of thing. So but that being over is good.
But I wonder, like, okay, so I always come to a place of what is the line that I should be playing in like business roles, right? Because I've been at workplaces, right, where you're being friendly for the sake of being friendly, right? But does that mean that I should just kind of like be better at speaking my mind and saying what I want anyways? Because at that point, then you avoid a lot of this, like, oh, I thought we were super close. Now you kind of get rid of all of that, right?
Yeah.
What's the line there? I also don't want to be unfriendly and a jerk, right?
I did realize though that sometimes I think one thing I'm learning through this process is um, that maybe I need to think more about being proactive about um, getting a sense of where people are, like in these business relationships, with the understanding that you know that they're not. I'm not interacting with sometimes like the decision maker or the decision makers like higher up. That's a fault on my part. I need to be careful with that because otherwise the rug pulls can happen, right? Like if I'm not sure in conversations with them, in repeated deliberate conversations with them, that we're doing almost like performance review type stuff, then the surprises come. And I think that through this process, I've just learned that sometimes we let like the no news is as long as
good news.
they would complain if they didn't like something. Well, I mean, how many of us do that, right? Like, you get an overcooked steak at a restaurant. A lot of us just don't send it back, right? But then we just don't go to the restaurant again because wasn't up to our standard.
Yeah, my issue with that, and my wife always makes fun of me for that, but I always think like, listen, then I've got to wait another 15 minutes for the steak to be done. That's 15 minutes I've lost. I'd rather just eat my steak and be done with this.
And be like, it's a little overdone. I'm not gonna, but either way, you're not coming back, right? Like, I mean, if it's not
I do a three try rule, right? The three tries, all right? If 3 times consistently you disappoint me, you're written off. You're gone forever, right? Like you got to do baseball rules, right?
I think it's that's very merciful, but with as many restaurants as there are,
I know.
If I have an experience at one that is not up to a really good standard or standard of another restaurant, then I'm just going to go to that other restaurant because I know I'm going to get a consistent thing out of it. Yeah. So my only point to say is this, that I think that maybe that a lot of people struggle with confrontation or bringing up direct feedback or something like that, and giving insight to kind of where they are and on their perspective. And so but as somebody who owns a business and is dependent on their decisions to keep you on, I guess realistically you need to schedule those conversations and be like, if there's any, are we good? Is there any reason why we wouldn't want to continue this engagement moving on? Do you want to grow? Like really be candid about it, because
like just even if you ask it from an area of like, where are the areas that you guys really want to grow in that we're not necessarily performing in, right?
Sure.
I think you're right. I think having those conversations are really, really important. I think those are good.
So I'm trying to get some learning from it here. But yeah, definitely I'm with you. Like the sense of like this week specifically is already, with it just being Tuesday, having already had an emotional roller coaster on it, is a tough one. When there's stuff like this going on, and you're kind of, I mean, I think like you said, it's a hard not to make it a personal reflection. I think similarly, I'm in the same boat of like, well, if it happens once, I usually don't take it too hard. Yeah. But then you have like a series of them, and I'm like, well, maybe it is something that we're doing that's off, and we need to really fix. The same token, though, it was kind of funny. I had another client though on the opposite end. So this one client not wanting to pay invoices, another client canceling services, saying they brought it in house, but really they're going to another group. Yeah. So again, so I felt like what we talked last time was this lack of integrity thing that we have that is a really big issue when we do it to ourselves, but also when other people do it to us. I had another client on the opposite spectrum send me an email and said, "Hey," because I invoice them every 2 weeks, and they said, "Hey, we didn't get an invoice for the period from this time to this time. Did you send it and we missed it, or what happened there?" And I was like, I missed it. Like occasionally I'll miss one.
Yeah, that happens.
Every 2 weeks.
Well, especially you being sole business owner here, you have to figure that out. Right?
And I think it was a Friday. Usually I send them I schedule them on Friday, and I think the kids were off that Friday, so I lost track of that and the things I had to do Thursday, and so. But the fact that she sends that email is just like, "Hey, do we miss it?" And then so I said, "Oh no, that's my fault. I missed it. I'll add those. I'll add that to the next invoice." And I said, "Look, I just want to say I appreciate when you send me messages like this. And I said I've got a couple clients that have not had a lot of integrity recently on their saying what they're going to do, but you are always one that's like
on it.
Is it here's equally, like if I overcount hours somewhere by accident or something, she'll easily be like, I don't have that many hours allocated. You can't bill us for those, and that's fair. We agreed to that term, but at the same time, if I'm missing, she's looking out for that thing too, which is something I need to recognize and appreciate. I think it's very easy when we get into like when we're in a series like this, like when I'm in a slope like this, where it's like I feel like I'm getting hit over and over and over again with kind of like tough news or like seemingly like attack type feeling.
Yeah.
I overlook the things that are happening that are in the other direction a little bit. Like simultaneously, I got a contract with ironically, it looks like I might win back one or two clients that I haven't worked with since either
last year,
like 2024 at the beginning, or last year. And so it's very possible that, and the clients that I've lost were new as of April and October of last year. So it's very possible that through this whole changeover of losing these, I might be in the kind of a similar position to where I was in like February of last year,
which is great,
which is a better spot to be. But I just think it'd be kind of ironic to like win back old clients and be like, well, that's weird. We just did a whole like boomerang thing. But I think I failed to appreciate the wins of having those those clients come back, and even just those projects be won. Like, hey, this one's back and this one's back. That's something I need to be excited about and happy with.
Yeah.
Similarly for you, like it's easy to look at the results of interviews, but I think I told you, I was like, you had more interviews in the last like 2 weeks of seeking a job than I think I did for months on end. Sometimes when I was looking for a job, I think it was maybe to do with the different levels or something like that.
I also think economics, like what your economic situation is during that time is always different.
But I'm just saying, like it's even though you may be looking at the fact that no offers have been extended as of yet, don't fail to recognize the number of opportunities and number of next steps that you have been given. Like,
agreed.
The number of interviews being offered, like you had like 3 stacked up in one day, which is really, really impressive and unexpected.
That actually took a lot out of me, surprisingly, because it takes a little bit level to be like on, right? Especially for interviews, because you're trying to give your best first impression, right?
And be like quick.
And be like a little bit quick-witted, and like when you're in the zone, sometimes you can kind of feed on that. That day I was not in the zone, but that's okay. I mean, maybe that's why those didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. Yeah. But normally I would 100% agree with you. Normally I would absolutely be like looking on the bright side of it, like, oh, you know what? At least they're coming in.
Yeah.
I've been applying to more stuff, and there's stuff to keep going, right? I think my issue though has always been that I'm more of a, and I don't know if I subscribe to the term, but we talked about this earlier, where it's like this toxic positivity, right? That comes out, right? I'm almost like too into the silver linings, right?
Sure.
Because I think I can convince myself in anything, right? Where I'm like, oh, you know what? This is bad, but bright side, I now learned that maybe I should mention this thing more, or maybe I should focus on this area, or I didn't feel confident when I was talking about this part, So maybe that's something I should lean more into, right? Or like try and kind of work out a little bit better. And normally I would 100% agree with that. But what I was talking with my wife is that I feel like I need to feel those bad feelings, right? Those like negative self-reflection just a little bit. So that way I can kind of process that into like discipline or into better results, right? If I gloss over it, I feel like but by saying like, oh, you know what, look at the bright side of this. This is great. Like, there's plenty of opportunities still available. I've had interviews that seem to go well. I've got the practice. Um, that kind of negates the negative and kind of makes me not feel that sense of urgency from like, hey, now I gotta move forward and do something with this, right? So it's a weird balancing act, right? Like, I don't want to stay sulky. I do want to let myself feel sulky a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm
with you there.
Balance there, right?
I think
so motivation comes from that.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I think I think there's always a good balance of figuring out what it is. Are there brighter like opportunities ahead, or through this whole thing, through this whole process, I think that I've been pretty interested in like, okay, so what is this telling me, or what's this whole experience been about, or why are we going through any of this kind of stuff? Why do we go through struggle just in general?
Yeah, what's the lesson here, right?
Yeah, and I think sometimes there's a few things I always kind of gravitate toward. Like, I think struggling through something, it's kind of like it's like a callus, right? Like, you get stronger through struggle. Like, when I play guitar and like a lot of different things, I know that like
weightlifting, right?
Things, like you callus over, and that but you need to develop it. Like, nobody will ever tell. Like, if you're a guitar player or something like that, you're starting out. Like, they will tell you the calluses are coming, and you just gotta let them happen. Like, there's no gloves, there's no nothing. Like, you don't mediate through this. You just let the calluses happen. Let it cut you, let it scab over, let it get harder and tougher. Because I think that's kind of helpful, like for us. Like, I think sometimes struggle comes so that we can train for harder things to happen, which is why this is why it's not beneficial to win every game you play.
Absolutely.
Why, because
the most important lessons are learned from losing, right? Like, I think that all the time. Right?
Almost the only lessons you learn from losing, right? You don't really learn from wins.
That's actually really true.
So I think I like the idea of thinking about that. Like, so struggle makes you callous over and get you more resilient to future struggles. And then I think that it also kind of puts. I'm very much a like, hold on, let's pause and think about if there's a bigger picture or a deeper meaning in the struggle that like I'm not seeing. Like should I just be like, we're obviously it's digital marketing, right? So should I just be scrambling for more digital marketing opportunities and just like go just keep getting more and build it up again? Or is this a time where I should really be sitting back and assessing whether or not this is still the path I want to pursue and
refocus
down, right?
Yeah.
Which is, and then out of that, I think there comes like opportunities like this, like this podcast. Whether or not this becomes something so big that we can support ourselves with just it, I have no idea. But it is something that it could be coming out of this experience for regardless, whether it's just to help us personally get through stuff or if it's actually going to really help something bigger. But the fact is, we're setting aside time to talk about this, and that it's meaningful.
Right.
And I do think that there's that's the bigger picture too, is like getting that I would always love the idea of there just being a driving force of meaning. And I think you and I talked about us lately kind of being a little bit aimless in our, not maybe meaning, but vision of what we're going toward, and
lacking purpose and direction.
I think that and I think that like we were talking before too. I think we said it on the last one or in a prep conversation.
Sure, I know, hard to tell sometimes what's happening, right?
Just the way
we talk often,
but it was like I was wondering if I'm a big believer in the idea that meaning is a better driver for your life than happiness generally.
Absolutely. Purpose. Yeah.
Because happiness is such a fleeting thing. As you can see, we were both not super happy at various times this week. Something else is driving us forward. And if you have a good, concrete meaning to your life, then I think that, like, really, like, and you're doing things that are meaningful and purposeful, then I think that it's easier to keep that drive going amid the struggle,
Yeah.
And happiness is just like, if you're happy, that's almost just like an extra, like, benefit.
Agreed.
Great,
It's
good
never
for
it's
you.
never the purpose of it. It's never the goal, right? It's like the side effect of doing something that's purposeful, right?
Yeah, it's like succeeding in your meaning makes you happy, obviously.
But if you're just chasing happiness, that's kind of empty.
It's super empty.
Right.
Yeah,
It's kind of
because
empty.
like that, because then you get in, like, I always think those ideas are really fun, because, like, if you're like, when you talk about, like, well, this is my whole meaning purpose in life is to be happy. It's like, all right, then, like, then just don't have a job, and drink all
Yeah,
day,
it's
and
strippers and cocaine
and
all day.
cocaine all day.
But yeah, that's kind of
Yeah,
empty. There's
it's
no.
super empty. Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm just doing stuff to seek pleasure, nothing concerned to actually building something or
Yeah.
driving forward. I do think uh, that we were talking, my wife and I were talking. Well, and we talked about it too. Like, if you know, we also done, like, the Dave Ramsey
Yeah.
financial
Which I
peace
swear
university.
I'm on
So
like chapter 12.
you're so far into it. And that's fine. I know that there's probably a lot of people who are going to watch this. They're, like, very anti, Dave Ramsey's methods, and I know that his all this stuff. Sure, let's just set that aside for a minute, because all I want to say about it is that one thing that he does is talk about getting on a budget, and the reason you get out of budget, and you get out of budget for every dollar that you bring in. The reason you do is because you got to give every dollar, you got to sign every dollar a name and put it in its place. Because if you don't, it's just going to go somewhere else, wherever you
And we were
want.
talking about that with our
Yeah,
time. The same thing with our time,
Oh,
right?
for
If
sure.
you're not purposeful with it,
Yep.
if you're not assigning every hour, I wouldn't say minutes. Minutes kind of crazy, but every hour to something, right? Then you're losing it essentially, right?
Yeah,
Something's going to fill that time. It's going to be done.
and
You're
it's
going to
going to
spend it
happen
regardless.
over any time span. It's going to be, you can talk about, I just lost track of my day. You can talk, where'd this week go? We all say it. Wow, where'd this week even go? And then you get on a call in, like, around now, like April, and you start hearing clients and people like that talk. And they're like, gosh, where's this year going? It's just flying. And it's kind of like, I know that it's just kind of like just saying,
Just regular chatter, sure, yeah.
offhand, but really, it's kind of like an indication too that we're letting things go so fast. And then usually that's when they say, where is this year going? Usually it's because we've got, like, some quarterly thing that we're doing, and
Something's
now
coming
we're
up.
just realizing, and we're scrambling, and we're, oh my god. And so that's clearly not a good focus or anything too. We should very well know how we're going. So I think there's a really good, like putting assigning a point, a dedication point, to your money and your time is valuable. It's something my wife and I were talking about too, was doing that for everything, not just business stuff, but personal life too. And we even said, like, so my wife's been trying to do these, like, kind of learning challenges kind of stuff. She's thinking about doing a YouTube channel type thing, where she's doing, like, some of these bigger self challenges and things like that, like baking a cake, even though she's not a baker, doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And she's gotten really into it. But one of the things she does really well is plan. She's an excellent planner for stuff like this. She's got a project like your wife's bachelorette party. That was planned.
Yeah.
That was planned.
I saw spreadsheets. That was
planned, yeah, and it was planned almost like as soon as you popped the question, she knew she would be maid of honor.
That's funny.
She was just planning. Meanwhile, we did yours in an hour
Zoom call.
2-hour Zoom call. Bought everything, did everything.
Yeah. My friend was like, yeah, dude, we did it over Zoom. Everybody was having, like, a beer. It was chill. It was chill.
Awesome. It's so easy. We're, like, from, like, nothing to fully fledged bought and paid for. It was amazing.
Which was a solid trip. It was a great time. It was a great time. It was really fun.
So, but what I said to her, but she was having an emotional time the other day too, and she said, I just feel like I'm failing at like being a mom. I don't have enough time. I don't spend time with the kids. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm focusing over here. And so I just said, I'm inviting you, to apply as much planning and forethought as you do to your projects, to your personal life, to us, to everything like that. And I said, because what's funny is like, I'm like, you're literally you're creating a channel that says like an impossible thing. Like, I'm going to learn to sing this song, or I'm going to learn to sing when I'm not a singer, and I'm going to do really well as singing by this. And and she tries to make the impossible possible for her, right? And I'm saying, but what's funny is you're telling me, you're literally saying you can do that, but you can't carve out a half hour of dedicated time with just you and your son, right? Like, or you and you and each kid, during the day. That's impossible. That's the impossible thing. Not the crazy plans and projects you're doing. Not impossible. None of those are impossible. But what is impossible is to actually find time in your day to dedicate. And what I've noticed, she would never say it, of course, because the women would never say this. But I've noticed today, as an example, like she got ready earlier than she usually does before she went to her Pilates class. She got ready earlier, and when my son was ready, and before she went to her class, they played chess together. Like, they had a time together.
That explains the chess.
That explains the chess. Okay. But because she's like, well, it's hard because you have so many after school activities. It's like, well, it's hard to find time with him specifically, given his activities coming up. But there's this time when I could get ready sooner than I usually do and not just be scrambling out the door. So I think like that's another example, like deliberate time markers that you can really say, that's when I'm going to do this thing and do this, kind of accomplish this. That can be done kind of with anything, right? If you want to write or learn a new skill or something like that, it's like, when do I have the time that I'm not making time, that I'm sleeping in late, or I'm playing video games, or I'm just getting lost on TikTok or whatever it is, right?
Those are the time sinks, right? The time sinks where it's crazy. Like, because you don't assign it time. But I think you're right. I think what I tried to do kind of yesterday was assign the whole day as my sulking day, right? My day to be sad, my day to not enjoy it and to be like kind of depressed if I want to be, right?
Yep.
But I think you're right. I think because there's a deliberate day, I'm already starting to feel a little bit better about it. I'm like, oh, you know what? It's not so bad. I think you're right. Being deliberate with your time and just setting aside that time is perfect. The funny thing is, though, is I like plans because I like the concept of not planning, right?
Okay.
So I like a plan so that way I can deviate from plans, and that makes me feel like I'm kind of like getting away with something, right? Like, it's kind of fun. I don't know what that's about, but for some reason that's like my favorite thing. So my fear is that I would create like a plan and then just not do any of it. But I wonder if that's like an excuse. That could be kind of an excuse on my end.
Interesting. Okay. Keep going with that. I need to wrap my head around.
Sorry, I'm getting a call anyways.
All right, cut.
No, but I mean, it is. No, it's so like for me, I think I don't know if it's because I'm like avoidant or maybe it's because I like to procrastinate.
Yeah.
But my fear is that if I create a plan and it doesn't go the way I want it to go, what's the point in creating a plan at all? At that point, why did I even do this? You know what I mean? And so, and then also, I don't like the monotony of plans, right? Like sometimes if you're like, well, I do this every single day at this time, at this thing, then I'm like, well, that's a humdrum life, and I don't want that. I want spontaneity. I want improvisation, right? So like I get some joy out of having a plan, but being like, no, today I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to go do this thing instead, right?
I see.
So I feel like those are like hard parts to kind of like
balancing yourself.
But again, I don't know. I also wonder how much of that is just me explaining away instead of like just doing it and trying it and seeing where it goes. Because I haven't tried it. I haven't tried putting it into action, right? So who knows? It could be a very different story once I actually do it.
I think there's probably benefits of both. We're obviously not experts here, so somebody's going to probably be like, this is not right the way you should do it.
Actually, I like that. Tell us what we should do. Actually, tell me if you've got an idea. I want to hear that.
I heard that idea of like neurologically, like as soon as you wake up, you should just get up, because unless you can sleep for another 2 hours, you won't be able to get back in your REM cycle.
Yeah, so you won't even complete a full one.
If you fall asleep again for another like 15 minutes, you're just gonna wake up more tired. So it's just like, get up and go. Like is like the expression. But I'm just like, oh my gosh, you don't understand, lady. Like who was saying this? Like sometimes I wake up at like 4:30 and I'm just like, oh my god, can't do this.
Yeah. What are you supposed to do at that point, right?
but then maybe you have so much time. I have done that before where I was on a streak of waking up early, and I was very impressed with how much more time you have in your day. You can get more done by like 9 a.m. or whatever than you imagine, but it can be a little exhausting, and I think it can be a little it takes away a little, especially for us with like kids and everything. It's like you're spent by the end of the day, and it's just like forget it.
For me, it's always borrowing time from a different time, right? Like I've talked about that with like drinking or with anything, right? Like you have a late night, you're just borrowing time from the day from the next day, right? You're just getting a cash advance on your time, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna spend it
from the interest on that. Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. So like the next day, you feel it. You're hungover. You can't move. You can't do anything. I feel the same way about like switching my scheduling to like 5 a.m. because I've tried that before, right? The 5 a.m. wake up. I think I started reading the 5 a.m. Club, right? Crystal or your wife recommended
it's a very weird book, but
it wasn't my vibe, and I just didn't like the way the narrative was structured.
It was weird.
I almost feel like it'd be better.
Narrative, which was bizarre.
It would have been better if they just told me these are the benefits of doing this, but I don't think they would have had a full-fledged story.
ChatGPT, the gist of the book.
Yeah. And regardless, I think the concept's great, but I found that when I was doing that for a short period of time, I was losing out on that, like past 9 p.m. I wasn't doing anything else. I was going to bed way earlier, and so the time that I would use as like nothing hours were time where like maybe I want to play a video game or scroll on TikTok and lose a little bit of my day, right? Mm-hmm. That time was all completely gone. So I felt like I was all productive throughout the day.
Yeah.
And then there was no outlet towards the end. Right? Maybe that's a scheduling thing too. Maybe I just gotta schedule it. But
maybe I don't know. I struggle with like those time wasting type things, like things that we know are time wasting. Like I've started to feel really guilty about consuming those too much. I do know that like there's just probably I could be bettering myself in so many ways.
There's better
right?
uses for your time, right? Yeah.
So it's just like especially. So I struggle with those kind of things sometimes. But at the same time, it's like I think when I tend to get very much lost in those things when I don't have where I'm getting less kind of satisfaction from other stuff in my day, right? So I look for that where it's like I'm just looking for something menial, gratifying, whatever it is that I can just do and just indulge, I guess, for a little bit.
No, that's true.
I mean, there's reason that all those things are profitable is because we all kind of seek those external things for gratification, I guess.
It was kind of sad. I was telling my wife about this, where I was like, today I don't know if I want to even like be in my head, so I'm just gonna go do other things and pursue that, because then that gives me some kind of form of like, well, I'm getting stuff done or I'm getting through the day, right?
Yeah.
So like I think that happens sometimes too, right?
Yeah. There's a my wife was reminding me there's a Bluey episode because if you're
Bluey's poignant, all right?
If you're a parent out there, Bluey is your guidepost to helping your kids and yourself as an emotional adult navigate these emotional. But there's one episode where it's funny they never address it. They don't address what the subject matter is, but the dad in it they're at the beach. And on like a vacation as a family, and the dad in it is like usually like top notch dad, very involved, very engaged, like all.
Yeah, he's dad goals, right? Where you're like, man, sure, I wish 100%. That dude's awesome,
but
very playful, which I love.
Is the aspirational male, but he's very much distant and very much like a little bit like lost. Very much how I felt like with this whole week, and where you're just like not there. You're thinking about things that you just can't get over. And you can tell something at work or you're in his personal life elsewhere. I think work though, because the way that his wife was engaging him seems more like a work thing than a personal thing. But yeah, he just wasn't with it. And his kids were asking him something, and he's like, it's almost like he's in that pods where you're like, what was that?
You're phoning it in kind of, right?
Like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. And he's again very uncharacteristic of him in the way he's behaving. And then at some point, his wife tells him, just let it go. You're missing this. Like you're missing the whole experience we're having here. and all he says is like, I'm trying, he's like, I'm trying, I know I'm trying. So he's just trying to let it go. But so that's what makes me think it's like, because that's pretty insensitive to do if someone's going through something personal.
A little bit.
Like,
yeah,
his mom's like dying or something. She's like, let her go, she's gone. To me, it tends to be more like something like, it's fine, things that you can, you're just like hung up on. And so he was hung up on it, and he was having a hard time letting go. So anyway, I just think that it was like that. So she's kind of just like my wife being like, let it go, like you're missing the time with the kids and stuff. And so luckily my daughter had a ton of energy last night, and so she was just like wanted me to put on music for her to dance to, and then she was like, "Why aren't you dancing with me? Get up and dance!" And it was like this whole thing.
I love that. No, that sounds
so we had fun at the end of the night, and it was good to go. But yeah, I kind of to circle back and talk. I think this is. I can definitely understand. I think that we men definitely we get stuck in our heads more often than I think people that we usually even let on. I think my wife has probably said to me, let's see, we've been together almost 20 years, so she's probably said to me 7 billion times at this point by the rate that I'm, what are you thinking? What's on your mind? What's going on? Oh my gosh, over and over again. But I just don't, sometimes I don't even know how to articulate it.
Sometimes I don't want to articulate it. Sometimes I know it's like this is something I don't even want to poke the bear because I don't know what's going on in there, and I'm not necessarily afraid, but I don't want to get into that space because if I do, I'm not going to be able to either come out of it or come out of it and still be able to function the rest of the day. But that's what it feels like. Sure. It's probably not that way. It's probably worse because you're avoiding it, but that's what it feels like sometimes. Where it's like I don't want to unpack this right now. Listen.
Yeah, but I think that's what leads us to just kind of like clamming up so much and just being like kind of for so long. I think we prolong it, and then we prolong needing to have that conversation or kind of putting a detail on it. That's what extends our kind of just that generally that all right period for us. Just keeps going because we're just like not saying like I'm this thing happened. I'm really bugged by this thing, and sometimes that's what I do. Like that's what I've done. I can't express the deeper hurt feelings or something like that, but I can just say that thing that this thing that happened just really bugged me. Further beyond that, don't maybe want to get into it or explain all the thoughts that I've had about it or the emotions behind it. But if she's asking and I'm just going to give her something so she knows it's not her, it's not the kids, I'm just going to say, I'm bugged by this thing. And I try and process that thing, right? At least get it out there for me is helpful because then I can start wrapping my head around why is that doing that to me, or what hold does that have on me? Or she can even say, well, why is that such a big problem? Because we're,
But sometimes talking it through kind of helps too, right? And I think that's the part too. We avoid it, right?
Sure.
Because then you have to admit that it's a problem, or that you don't have the answers to it, or that there might not be a solution. Right? Yeah. And that's sometimes scarier, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like sometimes some of these things don't have solutions, and there is nothing we can do at that point. So you have to kind of submit to it and just let it go, right?
Yeah. Or I mean, I think with guys too, we definitely don't let each other in on it a lot of times. We might I'll talk to my wife more than because obviously she's asking, she's more in tune
also
with
your life partner, right?
Yeah.
Like she sees you every single day,
exactly, right?
You see another guy around, you're not gonna be like, dude, you know what's bothering me so much?
Maybe not, yeah. but I do think we should do that more because I think that that I was talking with our mother-in-law the other day. Again, for those of you joining who this is the first time, we are brothers-in-law through marriage, everything like that. So, we have the same mother-in-law, same father-in-law, same two sisters-in-law.
That's right.
I was talking to my mother-in-law about this, and I said, there's sometimes you don't want to talk. Like there are people that I will never open up to. I think that I could even maybe I will one day, but I would never really do that because they're at a different I don't feel like they could understand the kind of struggle that I want to talk about or that I'm kind of experiencing. They're not there. And obviously then I don't really know, there's a lot of reasons for it. But sometimes you talk to folks who like you're like I if I feel comfortable enough, I might just be like we've told, with us not having some of the income that we had before, we've had to cut a lot of things, and one of the things we had to cut was something my daughter was doing, and uh, we were doing it. We had some friends that were also doing it with us.
Like an after school activity, right?
School activity, and so we were like, well, we got to tell them.
They're not going to see us anymore. Yeah, exactly.
And so I was like, well, do you want me to say like, we just don't have the time? I was like, why don't you just tell them what's going on? Just say it. Because also, I think it's it's Yogi, somebody, no, Ron Paul used to say, right? I always tell the truth because it's one less thing you got to remember.
That's fair.
You have to remember the truth.
I mean, it's true. Yeah, you don't have to go back and retell the story. Right?
You have to remember your lies. You have to remember truth.
That's true.
And so I just say it. And what's funny is like she said it, and then she told her, and she sympathized something with my wife, and then later on divulges their own struggles that they're going through. It's like, actually, I didn't want to talk about it when you're there, but we're going through something really similar. It's really
her
hard.
Husband also, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's I think that we miss, if you don't open up to somebody, you miss that opportunity to connect with them at like hey, I feel you, man. It's going. How are you doing? Like, what can there's still something there to just like say, wow. It's also just good to know, even though it's like you don't want other people around you to struggle. It is good to know that you're not alone. You're not the only one going through something like this.
No, it's interesting that you say that because I found that like in talking about this podcast, right? So like family, friends, I brought it up to them being like, oh yeah, this is something we're going to be doing, right? And every guy that I've talked to about this seems interested. Now this could be a nicety, right? Could be, I mean, who knows, right? It could be a nicety. But I think a lot of them have their own struggles that they want to talk about. And it kind of actually gives a nice bridge for them to open up. Like I'm going to be getting coffee with one of my cousins this week, and we're going to talk about that sort of thing, right? Which isn't necessarily something that we might have done prior to this podcast, right? Yeah. But what's good about this is already I feel like it's a catalyst to discuss these ideas and these concepts, right? Because I'm like, oh, well, what's the podcast about? And it's like, well, it's about being vulnerable. And as guys, we don't have a space for that. And so we want to create that space to be vulnerable and to talk about our emotions and kind of work through these tough emotions and these things, pressure that we feel. And I think every guy has their own experience with that. Yeah. It's very relatable. Like every guy I talk to is like, dude, you don't understand. I'm going through X, Y, Z, or, I just got laid off, or, oh man, I didn't get laid off, but I feel so aimless and I don't know where I'm going right now. I think those are all really relatable situations, and we've all felt that way.
Yeah, and what we tend to like to do is, I mean, what we've done is a lot of kind of like hero worship, and we do have hero worship over people who've had adversity hit them, but we always do it at the end.
Yeah, it's like the story's over. They made it through. It's good.
Like I can remember, like Steve Jobs one, he gets talked about all the time. Oh my gosh, talk about like somebody who had vision beyond what anybody else could, and like that kind of stuff. Let's talk about it. But what's fun, and then now we talk about and then he was fired from his own company, and he was, he's fired from the company he created. He's lawsuits from Microsoft, and they lost all tech, and and then does then he rebuilds and does all this great stuff, right? But what's funny is like, okay, well then let's just go back to when he was fired from his own company. He talks about how difficult and painful that was, right? And he talks about that. He talks about how he felt betrayed and stuff. Like he's talked about that before. And then I just think like I remember everyone was like laughing at him and ridiculing him about like him being like ousted and all this stuff. And I just think, we all have our own hero's journey, I guess, that we could be hitting. We all have our own hero's journey, but and we're just kind of in the middle of it. Like we're in that middle part, right? Where we have something to reference back to and say, I went through the exact same thing 25 years ago. I went through the exact same thing where it was like that. and now I'm over here, and you can say it looks like so easy from like where we are there. Hopefully, I feel like I'm Michael Scott when he's like, when I'm sitting on my yacht and I've got 25 kids.
That's right.
And he's like, obviously, and he's like, I won't even think about this happening. I mean, obviously, I did pretty well. I've got a yacht.
I got a yacht, so like, come on. Yeah, no, I love that.
But I know it sounds like that's what I'm doing, but it is that. Like we
that's a good perspective shift. I love that.
Right? Like we're in the weeds of it all. So let's not think that the state that we're in today is one that's going to carry on forever, because it's not, and we know it's not. And then at the same time, it's like that if we admire people for overcoming struggle and adversity, yet then act like we are scarred by our own struggles and things that we're going through.
And can't admit to them or talk about them.
Yeah. And like acting like, well, I failed, period, end of story, done. This is where my story ends. That's just not fair. And the one quote, that's not fair to ourselves. And there's one quote, I remember I'd heard something like, something like, it'll all work out in the end. It'll all, everything is, something like that. It's all going to work out in the end. And if it's not, now I'm going to have to
find you're okay. You're all right. No worries.
Hang on.
My mind goes, listen, it either all works out or, I die, and then it's not my problem anymore.
Okay. It's like, it's all going to work out, and it's all going to work out on the end. And it's, I'll find the quote because it's perfect. Because basically what it's saying is that, if it's not, it'll something like it'll all be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end.
I love that.
And so I think that's really nice. Just like the bridge. So all that little thinking about it, I'm going to cut all that out, and then I'll just hit the point of it'll all be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end.
Yeah.
And so I always need to remember, like, this is just a process. We're just getting through it. It's just a journey. And the fact that, like, I think I shared on last episode, like, there's been like 4 or 5 times where I felt like this was like really, really bad spot, and everything that was just the starting point to something new. You just got to, you have to end a chapter in your life in order to start a new chapter in your life.
Yeah.
And hopefully that chapter gets better, it's positive, it's what you want, but you got to end. No matter what, that chapter's got to end. Like it's just destined to end. There's nothing.
We talked about it at lunch after the podcast last time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like the idea of chaos, right? Chaos is, yes, it's crazy and there's a bunch going on, but it's like a rebirth. There's something born from that, right?
Yeah,
there's a bunch of things happening and it feels terrible, but something new comes out of that, and you create order out of that, and eventually it becomes something new, right?
Yeah, and it has. Yeah, only new things can only be essentially born out of destruction.
Yeah, you have to get rid of the old, right?
Destruction, chaos, right? Like the Big Bang, volcanoes, like everything. That chaos and violence and destruction usually births the new stuff. And like I said, I think the perspective shift of just being like, why are you acting like this is the end of your story? It shouldn't be the end of your story. Some people are, they make it the end of their story, which is really tragic, or they live in that story forever. They can't get out of it.
That's the pitfall that I always want to avoid, right? It's
right.
Like, we're not defined by these things that happen to us, right? We're defined elsewhere and finding purpose elsewhere, right? But in between, there's some moments of uncertainty, right? And these are one of those moments for at least me and you for a moment, right?
Yeah, and I think, and I definitely, like, I like turning situations into how problems, like, all right, here we are. Here's where we are in the situation. How do we get out of this? Or how can I do this? As opposed to just being like dwelling on what is, and all of the let's say the worries or the different trains of thought of how this is going to go. Why not focus your energy on how do I move forward from this, or how do we go about, like, all right, what's the next step? How do we go through this? Like, turn it into a creative problem. One thing my wife was doing with her podcast stuff was, or her YouTube, show stuff, her YouTube stuff, is she's trying to, she just completed a 7-day fast.
Which is insane. I could never.
It is insane.
I went 24 hours one time, and it was like, oh my god.
Once again, you can knock out a 7-day fast. You can figure out how to carve out some time to spend with the kids, right? As again the point I think. And she did. She got it. But one thing she was surprised at is, she did some blood work because she wanted to see like how beneficial this was to her health. And some of the blood work was kind of counter to what she expected.
Really?
Yeah, very interesting. You'll have to watch that. You'll have to watch that episode to see what
happens.
I'm not going to take it away from her. But it was counter to what she expected, and she got really bummed really quickly because she was like, oh no, like I thought this was going to be like a good thing. I was going to be able to share it, and I was just going to be able to say, this is exactly what you should be doing, but now it's not. And I said,
it's still learning though, yeah.
Yeah, and I said, well, why are you just acting like that's the story? Like, first of all, because she's like, because she's like, well, everybody had this happen. Everybody had, dropped this much weight, and everybody had this happen with their, this thing and this thing, all these different measurements. Everybody went in that direction, but mine is like saying this, and I'm like, first of all, that sounds incredible because the last thing I ever want to do on YouTube or any other network or anything like that is watch the same stuff I've already seen 10 times and see predictable results. You show me abnormal results or something interesting, I'm more inclined to watch your video. So if you want to be a really good content creator, stop showing the same stuff, in my opinion. So I'm like, that's a win already. You've already got one really good angle. I can see the headline now. I completed a 7-day fast. And
you won't believe the results. Yeah, exactly.
Watch that whole video.
Super clickbait. Done.
I watched the whole video and I watched all of the shorts. Like that's how good it is. So I'm like, why? First of all, consider it that way. And then second thing is like, I said, why? My wife just loves learning more things and digging into that kind of stuff. And so I'm like, why are you concluding that this is a bad thing? Or why are you just concluding that because these numbers show this way, that it means only bad things? Like I'm like, the woman I know would be like, that's interesting. Why'd that happen?
Yeah.
And then dig into it. So I sent her some ChatGPT stuff about like, why would this happen? Because obviously it's smarter than any of us. And so I'm like, why would if after a 7-day fast these numbers be up or something? And it gave me all these different reasons. It was super interesting. It was like, okay, I'm like, that's what you need to include in your show. That's what you include in all this stuff. That's what the learning you take away. So similarly, I think with our own things, I like to like hurdles and struggles like this. It gives me. I want to acknowledge the suckiness of the situation and that I'm hurt by the things like that. But the times when I feel like I'm starting to revive is usually when I'm like, I've got to figure out a really cool
spin on this.
Not even just a spin, but like, all right, so this is happening. How do I shift it? How do I shift the momentum elsewhere? It prompted me to reach out to people that I hadn't talked to in a while. Say like, what's going on? You want to talk about doing something? Like what? And it prompted me to start this. Yeah. Hey, we talked about doing this a while back. You want to get it started? Let's get it going. Let's get it going now.
We got time.
We got time.
Let's do it.
I know the availability of time. It's like, all right, fine. I'm free from doing this stuff. We've got more time. Let's do stuff with it. So if you can turn it into like kind of a productive and positive energy or direction, we're guys. We are. We thrive on achievement and we thrive on power and control. And if we can seem like we're getting more control of things, seem like we're doing more things, seem like we're making progress somewhere, I feel like those are good steps to take to lead us to more consistent. Like then you're like, all right, well let's do this. I'm learning. We're taking clips of this and we're editing, we're figuring this out and figuring out ways to start teasing this out and everything. So I think generally there's a lot of good momentum we can get out of it, but it is and that usually turns it around for me. I'm usually that's what I've been. Like I said, it's been a cycle the past few weeks. I feel like by the end of the week I'm very motivated. The beginning of the week hits me with a new thing, but I don't know. I guess if I can get to that end point, more consistently, or acknowledge that I'm just going to get calloused over in the beginning of the week every once in a while, then I'll be able to handle it better
Yeah, but I think you're right. I think like purpose really refocuses that, and that's not something I've really thought about. But if our purpose is to reach men, to help other people feel vulnerable and acknowledge those emotions and talk, that's a good purpose to have. I kind of like that. If that becomes, the purpose and the guiding light that we try and strive by from this point, I think you're right. I think there's happiness that comes from the byproduct of that, and maybe that's our goal. Maybe that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think we'll be setting a goal. We talked about doing that last time. I think it'd be really fun to set a goal for the show, and then anybody who's watching this could help us out in reaching that goal by sharing it out and getting other people to watch, other dudes to watch. Please,
even if it's just a conversation point, even if it's just a way to be like, oh hey, I saw this thing where there's some guys who had a podcast and they're talking about venting. That's kind of the real goal. I feel like that's real change where you can just bring that up to your friend, and then maybe it gives them a moment to like a natural break to kind of talk about that, right?
Yeah,
like what they're going through and how that's affecting them.
Totally. Or you can just reminisce with us and hopefully connect on some of these points of like, I had the same thought. Like I said, by us opening up, it seems like every time I open up to somebody or talk to them about a struggle I'm having, it seems to tear down a little bit of a wall or divide that we have with each other, and say, I remember going through something like that, or I am going through something like that, or or I'm not.
Well,
but
it's really appreciative of like, man, I'm in a good spot right now. This is lucky. I'm very lucky.
And then if that's the case, then let's hear from you, because I want to hear what that. I want to hear how your outlook is.
That's
we already have some. I mean, pretty soon. I mean, after we get a few more of these, I think we'll start doing guests on the show.
Yeah.
Because I do think there's some people in our lives and that I know and that would be really fun to pick their brain on how they've kind of come about this. We'll precede some questions and stuff and really have them kind of open up about their perspective on getting to the better than all right places when maybe it's not as easy to do it. One thing, the last thing I think wanted to close with kind of stuff is that, like I said, I was talking to my mother-in-law a little bit, and she was actually here. She was actually telling me about their Easter service and the concept of joy versus happiness, and coming out of it. And joy is a good word. I do like the word joy, but basically the idea being that those kind of like a deeper meaning of like contentment maybe is better to strive for than general happiness, because again, happiness just kind of comes and goes,
cyclical. Yeah.
And then another thing that I was thinking about as she was talking about it was, we always say, what's funny is like, blah 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 makes me happy, blah 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 makes me happy, which means that it comes from outside of us. It's external. So like, what makes me happy? Time to play video games makes me happy, right? Like you guys say that. Or like doing this makes me happy. Even like things like spending time with my kids makes me happy. That's fine and great. Like blah blah blah. But the way we use the word is that it has to have an external impact on us to make us happy. But really, joy or contentment or something like that comes from within us. We require nothing to prompt those things. They're just an internal setting, dial, whatever. It just comes from inside of us. And I think that when we seek out the external to make us feel happy or whatever, and that's what we're seeking is external gratification, that's when obviously things can become problematic, because now we're
filling a void, right?
We're filling a void, and essentially now we know scientifically, right? We're looking for the dopamine hits.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a dangerous path to go on. Everything that gives you a dopamine hit external to you can oftentimes not be very advantageous to you in the long term, right?
Also, it's temporary.
Not everything,
these are band-aids,
even
right?
like adrenaline junkies and stuff like that talk about how difficult it is to balance that. And so I just think that what I've been really working on lately is not necessarily seeking. Although it makes you very like stoic and like weird, like kind of acting like a weird little Buddha or something like that.
No, I love it.
But like little monk. But that idea of just like, in a bad situation, can I find peace and contentment here? Like I like literally, even when like I feel like the external is like I'm not happy, but I'm content.
Yeah.
I'm not happy, but I'm still joyful about situation. Like you can be those things, like everything's actually hitting you this way, but can you let that kind of like fire burn a little bit still, where you're like, I'm all right though. Like I think that maybe even better, not even all right, but I'm better than all right because I actually feel contentment about a situation or a peace. And one thing, she was talking about obviously church service. So I said that I had heard one time too, in a biblical sense too, is like, that Jesus never promises happiness. He promised peace. Never promised happiness.
Yeah.
And I think whether or not you're a religious follower or anything like that, I don't think it matters in the sense of, let's just say that contentment and peace is a sustainable
goal.
It's a much more sustainable situation. If you have peace amid the storm, then you're on a much sturdier base to act or just kind of exist.
Yeah.
So I think even like you had said when we talked about the show, the better than all right thing, and all right is a baseline, that kind of stuff. I think that's true. Like that's just what we say. We say, all right, all right. But I think that a way to elevate just above that and to make sure we never dip below the all right threshold is just knowing that we're the ones who generate our own level of peace. And when you're in those tumultuous times, like just turn to that peace, wherever that comes from. If it's praying, if it's meditating, if it's spending time in nature, all that kind of stuff. Just find the peace that's there, and don't let yourself dip down below that. And then you actually do feel a little bit better. You really do feel better than all right. Because all right is almost just like I'm
hanging on. I'm hanging on.
I'm all right, but don't ask me. Yeah. I'm gonna break down. So I don't know. And maybe we'll talk more about that in a later episode.
I like that. I think there is something to that too. I think like peace, meditation, trying to find a area of just like being in the now. I think that's a huge way, right? Yeah. Like I felt like in the past those were easy things to do, but of course those were on when I was in upswings in my life. To practice that on the downswings is also a lot harder, and I think necessary, right? Yeah. That's when you need the peace the most, right? Yeah. So I think it's an interesting point.
And that you're right. Focusing on being more present in the now, I think, is a super helpful practice. Because everything that I've been really pissed off about is nothing actually physically happening in the now, but it's stuff happening in the past and stuff, and then worries about the
future. Yeah, it's not what's going on here.
It's almost rare. It's pretty rare to have actually something happen. That's impacting you now. We all go through stuff like that, but a lot of what we're thinking about is worries for the future or kind of debts that we're carrying with us in the past. So that'll be interesting to unpack that more.
Yeah, I like that. Maybe we do an episode.
Yeah.
We meditate for 10 minutes where we're just sitting in silence.
Just have the camera.
Silence. I'm in.
All right. That'll be most watched.
Yep, most listened to as well. 10 minutes of silence.
10 minutes of quiet reflection time. All right. Well, I guess I think that'll wrap us up for today's conversation. And then I think today was kind of cool because we got to do more like a check-in with each other and kind of digest where we are, because we were going through something today and we both were like, let's just talk today. I think some episodes will probably be a little bit more structured, and then some will be like this where it's like, hey, we just needed to check in, see where we are, and talk, which is good.
I like the idea of mixing those in, right? Like, we have maybe like a topic for some days, right? Yep. And then just this.
Absolutely.
Freehand.
All right, man. All right, thanks so much. Talk to you soon.